is it true that you collect an item that hasn't really been sought after in about 25 years?
Yeah, I have a massive VHS collection that I just nerd out with all the time.
And why VHS? I mean, you're not talking Blu-ray, you're not talking DVD. Why VHS specifically?
It's like when you get one, you don't know if it's going to work or not, and plus it could
Wait,
be
you're
like,
saying that's a part of the appeal, is that it might
yeah,
just be faulty?
yeah, it's a risk.
Oh, you're a
So
risk taker.
yeah, so like when I started collecting them, I've just found movies that I liked, or movies that like I like had seen as a kid, like from the distance, but I was too young to understand them. And I watch them now and I'm like, oh, that's why this movie like won so many awards or why it was so special to some people. So I get a chance to not only revisit like my childhood, but I get to get a grasp on like what time was like back then too, because I don't remember a whole lot of my childhood. So those movies kind of like give me the happy moments. Does that make sense? Not to sound like dark or nothing, but like, I can just kind of tap into that and kind of nerd out over it. And it was just really cool, man. I started collecting them on tour on my off days. A bass player friend of mine that was subbing for us would go to these antique malls and collect cassette tapes. And he would shoot me a message, like a picture, and he'd be like, dude, look at all these tapes. And I would just, Uber over there or, walk or get a cab or whatever. And I'd meet up with him at these places and I would just like flip out over all these core memories being unlocked from, just seeing all the tapes and stuff. And then I got into like the Power Rangers rabbit hole and I have all the Power Rangers on VHS and it just, so it's just been really cool just collecting that and then spending time at home being still, and being in one place and not having technology around me or not having to, get sidetracked doing something else. I can kind of like put it in my day and like relax. And that's my me time.
So a collection of something could be 100, 200. How many VHS tapes do you think you have?
Roughly 600.
Oh man. Are they like beautifully displayed somewhere?
Yes. Yeah. When you walk in my house, like to the left, there's a Nintendo 64 with Nintendo 64 games, and then there's surrounding it, it's just a wall of VHS tapes.
And the most important question is, how do you organize these VHS tapes? Is it alphabetically? Is it by director? Is it by year?
Yeah, so like all the clamshells and cartoons and Disney movies are on the top left, and then the lower you go and the more like I don't know further south, the closer you get to like the horror movies. So like all my like Nightmare on Elm Street and all those like horror films, Amityville Horror and all that are just down at the bottom. Like if I'm in a heavy mood or something, I'll just watch one of those. Like I have all the Hellraisers and stuff. Like that's all down there too. So I like a lot of those films as well. It's
You're saying you
fun.
have to go to the depths of Hades to grab
Right.
a good horror
Yeah, I
movie.
know that I didn't want to like come out and say that, but yeah, I guess so. It's, you get down to the dark and it gets a little scarier.
That's funny. I remember, I don't know, 15 years ago, there was a garage sale at the base of my apartment building. And I remember this lady was selling VHS tapes. And even back then, they didn't go for a lot. And I think she was selling them for $1. And
Yeah.
an old man came up and was like, "Oh, I'll give you 50 cents for it." And she looked at him like it's 50 cents more, you know? And
Yeah.
the guy was like, "What's 50 cents between two friends?" And she's like, "You know what? Just take the VHS tape." So
Right. Yeah. That's one great thing about it is like it's a pretty cheap hobby. And if the tape's messed up, like would you lose $1? Like some of them are pretty valuable. Like I bought Pee Wee's Big Adventure right after Paul Rubens died, and that was like $25. But other than that, like I mean, some of them are, $3 and $4 or $5, whatever. Some of my Power Rangers movies were in the $5 range, but
really
I've also
splurging
got
on those ones. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've got some buddies like located around the country. Like I've got a really close friend in Atlanta, and that's what he does. Like when he goes out to these garage sales and stuff, he always sends me a picture of a bunch of VHS tapes, and he's like, "Do you want any of these? I'll box them for you." And then he would come out and see us when we were on that side of the country, and he would bring me a big box full of tapes that he had found that I'd kind of agreed on. And so it was just like Christmas all the time when I was on that side of the country, you know.
You have your VHS pushers around the country. I
I
like
do.
it.
Yeah, I do. I've got three of them.
That's amazing.
I
Uh,
know that sounds silly, but yeah.
I mean, of all the things you can enjoy or be obsessed with, I mean, this is like the most uh wholesome thing that you could do, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that plays a huge role in taming a personality too. Like the more wholesome things you're doing, it just eventually like, I don't know, kind of helps you appreciate things a little bit more, you know, appreciate time a little bit more because everything is so fast, you know. So, you know, that alone time is special, you know what I mean?